Welcome everybody. So, today we want to play around with a brand new Angular feature. I think it dropped last week probably, if I'm not mistaken, in 17.2. So probably I first have to, NG version. I'm still on the release candidate, so I think we can go with the stable one. So let's go latest instead of next, right? And let's see what it does. Good ng version 17.2. Nice, so that's the version we need because that's the version that contains the query feature. So let's go change directory to code private ng query signal queries. No server-side rendering, and let's go npm install. And I can already open up my favorite IDE to check out the project. So let's open documents, code private signal queries. Good, here we go. So we have generated a brand new project using the Angular CLI. We change it to not signal inputs but signal queries and run start, right? And here we go. No, let's not share this. Then we probably need a browser window. So localhost, and wow. And we are ready. Cool. Hey, live coding pre-Champions League. Yeah, exactly, that's the idea. Pre-Champions League live coding. So therefore my stream is kind of limited a bit. Because the Champions League is, I think, at 9, right? Yeah, it's at 9. But today, we play tomorrow, or next week, I think even. Real Madrid is not playing tonight. So then the Champions League is less important, right? If Real Madrid is not playing, it's less important. But today is still PSV Dortmund, which is interesting, and Inter Atletico. So let's go Interisti. Okay, cool. So what we want to do is we want to take a look at a quick new feature that is signal inputs. And now basically what you can do with signal inputs is, let's open up our app component. We will go with an inline template for the moment. I think that makes it a bit easier so that I don't have to always switch. Bump the font size a bit as usual. Font size 18, cool. So template, it's not template URL. There will be my template like this. So what we want to speak about today is basically there's a new feature in Angular, and we've already received signal inputs and model inputs. We already covered those on the stream, but now we get some new kind of inputs. So let's say we would have inside our template, instead of this, we would just have, it can also be an H1, doesn't matter. And this would be an element, right? So what you sometimes want, let's say this would be an input. So what you sometimes want is you want to get access of this, right? So you want to get a hold inside your component code. So what you do today is you would do like exactly something like this. Viewchild element ref, right? You probably have to import that stuff. But now what we can, and it's probably or undefined. And now what we can do, we can access those things as signals. So we can say we have our input element, and that input element is now viewchild, and that's available in Angular 17.2 like this. Element, and we can read the element ref, or we can read the native element. I think here it's not needed to read the element ref, just like this. And now, usually what you do is those things become available in ng-on-init lifecycle hook, depends on the static flag. But now this is a signal. It means we can basically run an effect and then just console log the native this.input element. Probably we have to type it because this would be element ref, right? And here we have to call it input element, and probably it says it's maybe also undefined, so we put a question mark there, and then we are good to go. So now let's check out the console. And do we even get, because we read the value, but I just want AI, I don't want this. So now we can see that we read the element ref and we get a hold of the input element, right? And that's basically how we can do viewchild now, which is pretty cool. So we can get it as a signal, and we will later see how this can be very helpful. There are some new things regarding this API, and I mean, you can still do like the same thing as you could do with the old one. Like you can still read element ref, for example. Static false, static true is still supported. I think read element ref is like this, or what are the possible options? So viewchild function. Options is just read. So you cannot use static anymore, because I think that doesn't make any sense. So we will try to explore that. But this read, this should be valid. Why? I mean, this should be valid. Does this compile? No. Read. And what does it say? Hi there, Kevin, how are you? I'm fine, and you? Wrap around the native element inside of you, expected one argument but two. But is this really true? So this works, but once I use the generic, it somehow freaks out, which is weird. Because this compiles. Probably he has to type then. Okay, because this works, right? But this is the only option. So in the past we could also use a static true or false. And the static true or false basically was saying, when does it become available? Is it available like in ng-on-init or in ng-after-view-init? Since we have effects now, this probably doesn't play a role. So I would say, let's do something like this. Let's say we have an element or like a flag, which is false. Like, I mean, we can even do it like this. It's a signal and we start with false, right? And then we say here a set timeout of, let's use maybe 2 seconds or 5. Let's go with 5. And of course this is set true. And then we say here, oh my god, this new Angular is something else, right? It's feels like a new framework. So we say if the flag, then render this input element. So I would say initially we would get undefined. Let's also prefix this. Hey Tayamba, how is it going? So we get undefined, right, initially? Yeah, it's a bit small, I still don't know how to mount the console. And whatever, we get something weird because I did something weird here. Now we get undefined. And then once it renders, after 5 seconds, we get the element ref. So there is actually no longer a need for static true or false, right? Which is pretty cool. Cool. So another thing that was added is basically .required, and I guess this will fail here in this scenario. Exactly, we get that's nice. So you can now say we require something to be there from the get-go. So if you have an ngIf, of course it's not there initially, but if you put required, Angular will throw an error. The compiler will tell us child query result is required, but no value is available. I think that's pretty nice. I think that's cool. I prefer that over the static attribute. So that's nice. That's nice. Of course, we can also query based on, instead of the locator here, we could also use a directive or a component's name and so on. So still the same thing that we are used from today. So now, what I thought what we could do is, because viewChild and viewChildren is not the only thing that is affected there. Also, I think viewChildren basically, I mean, let's see. I think viewChildren is basically something else. I think it's no longer a query list like it was in the past. My element 1, my element 2. So let's say we have elements equals to viewChildren. Yes, we don't need the read element ref here because it's anyway an HTML element. So, but if we don't put the read element ref, we have to specify it. Okay. Now let's go here inside our effect and let's just log out the elements. And what we see, okay, we get an empty array. I thought the locator also works for native. Doesn't it work for native, just... Yeah, so here we get it, but that's just the element. Let me see again. Tayamba will quickly do this and then I will come to your question, because we cannot use this one twice, right? So you cannot say like foo and then foo again. I thought it also works with native elements, like as a query, but doesn't seem to be the case. So this actually works to use the same template ref twice, and now what you get is just a normal array, right? You can then just loop over this. So you could say this dot elements but for each element, and then console log, and so on. And then you get 2 divs. But I thought that querying based on HTML, does it work if you query a class? I don't remember the specifics of the locator. So this doesn't work, and just querying by div probably also doesn't work. So let's see the locator. Tayamba, is it possible to wait specifically for input element to be initialized before running a method, or do we have to rely on an effect with response to any signal changing? So I think you have to rely on the effect. And also the thing with the effect is that the effect runs initially once, right? So an effect always runs once. So that means basically if you use something like this, like a flag, then initially the effect runs without having the element defined. And then you also need an extra check to check if the element is there or not. So ViewChild, I want to see what the locator can be. Isn't there like, or they call it here, selector the directive type, or the name used for querying, yeah. So yeah, either you use the template ref or probably directives, right? But you cannot use native elements, okay. Anyway, so this is now a list, which is cool. So we don't have this query list anymore. It's a normal array, which I prefer. So let's now say we want to implement something with this. So where could this be useful? Like, because also content child and content children are affected. So probably some projection, something where you project content like tabs or something, for example. So let's maybe go with that. So let's say we have a tab. Let's do a new directory tab, or tabs, probably tabs. And then inside this tabs folder, we do tab directive.ts. So that would be a selector tab. Let's call it my tab. Standalone, of course. Export class tab directive. Now AI, what are we going to do next? Not this. So what we would probably have is a title. So title would be a input dot required. Do we start with a default? I think if you have a required input, you cannot have a default, right? Because it's required. So we need a tab. And one thing that we want to use, we want to make our tab directive available as a structural directive. Whenever we use a structural directive, we get a template, and that will be in. Can I write inject? I can. Template ref, and we just provide it as a global, as a public value. So that's everything that we need for our tab directive. So let's go to our app component. No, actually we need something else. A tab group.component.ts, right? Selector. Let's call this my tab group. Standalone true template. Change detection. Yeah, not like this AI. So we have our tab group component. Now what we want to do is we want to basically go and we want to say we have our tabs. And tabs are basically content children. We say they are. Is there required? There is no required on the content children. And we say tab directive. Right. Now what we can do is add for flat tab of tabs. That's probably wrong, I think. Tab of tabs and track tab.title because the title has to be unique. No, that's wrong. And what we want to do is just display tab title. Let's go with that initially, right? Yeah, exactly, Thomas. Hi, Thomas. How is it going? Yeah, the effect will rerun if the query finds it later, yes. So I guess that's the reason why they removed the static flag completely. Because you basically don't need it anymore. Okay, so tab title, we have that inside our tab group, so let's make that available here. Let's remove that. Imports tab group component tab directive, right? Tasp directive. Okay. So let's remove everything that I had here. Also the constructor, we don't need that. And then we can basically say my tab group. And what we can pass here is, I don't know, something like a div. And then we put in the structural directive my, how did I call it? This is wrong. App.component, yes. Boom, my tab. And we pass in a title. Tab 1. And some content. Like let's say first tab content. Then let's do 3 tabs. Right, something like this. Input is required, but no value is available yet. What? So that seems like something that is cached because that's no longer the case. Title is a function, should be invoked. Yeah, that makes sense on the other hand. Because our title is a signal, right? But let's see, because this is a signal which is required. How is the workshop going, Thomas? Okay, I'm missing something. Input is required, but no value is available yet. Let's just go like... But I don't believe this is the error. Okay, we get 3 times something. So we see already that the projection works, but somehow we have our tab directive. Is it like this? I mean, this should be exactly the same thing, right? Hi Ilir, how is it going? Tab title. Let's see again. So we have title, which is basically there. And let me think. Maybe after continuing it, so like the idea is to not use the life cycle at all there, right? Because we have now we are using full signal to the fullest, and I'm not sure if we even need those life cycles, if we can use signals. And I mean, this should actually work because we are using this as a string. So if I would do this, right, then basically I would need it like this, but that should be the exact same thing. Is title a native? No, that should be the same thing. That shouldn't make it different. So let's call this. Let's call it tab title, just to make sure that we don't have. But I mean, yeah. Maybe here we have to call it. Input is required, but no value is available yet. So what if I just change that? I mean, I don't get it, to be honest. But what if I do here? I get 3 times initial, and I guess that's the issue here, because it seems like there is no tab title projected. Is that because, yeah, because we are using a structural directive. So probably what I need to do is input required, but alias probably has to be my tab. And then what you do is you use it like this, I guess. But then if I use it like this, I probably, as you say, I mean, it's kind of like a combination. I think if I use it like this, I have to really pass it in as a string. I mean, let's see. I'm not sure why he thinks that now the directive is not provided. This is really true because I think it compiles and we can see tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. So I think this seems to be like something in the IDE. But generally this works, so it compiles and it works. So what we of course want to do inside our tab group component, we want to style that a bit. So we want to give this like, we won't go too crazy with the styling because that's not what we are here for, but let's call this like tab header. Styles we can now use without array, we can just use it like this, right? Dot tab header. Okay, let's see what AI does. It gives it a padding of 10 pixels, a border. I mean, It kind of looks okay, but probably I don't want to have a right margin because the tabs should be like this probably. Also, it's unfortunately directly under the Angular logo, so what I will do is I will put some top margin. That's not the first time that this happens, so maybe I should remove the Angular logo there, or like top margin, yeah, margin top. So this should move it a bit down, that's not enough, but we will anyway bump the screen a bit so that you can see it even. So yeah, we have our 3 tabs. Alright, tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. What would also be nice to have some nice cursor pointer, just that we hover, that something happens, right? So now we have that, but of course we don't have yet any kind of content shown. So what we need to do, we need to display some content. So probably what we will do here is we will use a ng template together with a nice ng template outlet. And inside here what we want to do is we want to display the template of our tab. And we cannot just go tab because we need some sort of activated tab. Also this has to be imported. What? ng template outlet is imported, so why aren't you happy? Because probably it's empty. So, okay, before we do this, let's use now, how do we get the selected tab? And I guess that's something that basically can be done with a computed. So let's first say, like, we have a what is the point of still using ng modules in 2024? I don't think there is a point. Like, if you don't have to, like, I would not recommend to use ng modules anymore because there is no real benefit. There are actually some, I mean, the reason why you still use them today because you came from earlier versions, you have a big application, you cannot migrate everything to standalone components. Sure, you have ng modules around, but if you start fresh, no ng modules, right? Nothing. Computed, and what we return, let's just say, so we need some sort of active ID, I guess. Also when we click, we want to change some active ID. So we need to have active tab, which is probably a signal itself, which starts with 0. So initially, if nothing is selected, like we just start with the first one, and then we say the selected tab is this dot tabs at the position something like this. We probably don't even need this. Yeah, let me break that to a new line. So now what we would do is inside here would say ng template outlet is selected tab dot template, something like this. Cool, thanks for your answer. Sure, no problem, you're welcome. So let's see what this does. We rerun it and we see the first tab content, which is cool, which is nice. So let's go to div, let's put that into some class tab content, and let's again hop over to our super CSS Pro, which is Copilot, and say padding 10 pixel border. Wow, cool. So we have the first tab content, But of course, if we click, nothing happens yet, right? So what we need to do is, if we click on the tab header, and here we need to say select the tab, and here we also have, how is it with the new syntax to get the dollar index? I think I even wrote about it, but I don't remember the syntax. AngularExperts.io blog. I don't know if I mentioned this in the new control flow blog. We have the for loops, we have the track. Yeah, and there are variables available. So what do is for, we do something, we track, and then we say let e is equal index. So that would probably be here, let e equals dollar index, right? And then we say select the tab dot set. So this should be a writable signal. I don't know why the IDE doesn't get it here, but I think this is perfectly valid to do. It isn't. Property index, yeah. So let me see, because it's not selected tab, because this is not a writable, it's active tab. And now it works. Yeah, often the problem is in front of the computer, not right. So first tab content, second tab content, third tab content, nice. We have successfully implemented some tabs by using the new API. So we have used a couple of new APIs. We have used the signal inputs, and here the aliasing is important because we use it as a structural directive to get the thing in, because right, structural directive takes the template apart and basically is syntactic sugar for writing something like, I don't know if I can do it by heart to be honest, but I think when you do this, it's basically like having ng template and then inside there your diff, right? And if you just put something, what we initially did, a title on there, the title would be put here on top, and somehow your directive doesn't get that. So yeah, we have successfully implemented this. We have used the signal inputs, and we have also used the new inject, of course, which you should always use now over constructor injection. It has a couple of advantages. And then we have also used for the first time content children. What I really like here is, I really like that you now get it just as an array, not as a query list, and that you don't have to use the lifecycle hooks because you can just use computed, right? Maybe it would be interesting. Let me see how long are we into the stream. Where is it? So I don't see the time somehow. Whatever, I think we still have some time, so maybe it's interesting. Maybe it's interesting to rewrite or to write the same thing with today's API, so that we could see like the difference and the benefit of this API over the today's approach. So let's maybe do like a new director which we call new fresh, let's call it new. And let's generate there. By the way, you should always use schematics. I'm just too lazy. New file component, yes. So the reason why I don't use schematics is actually, I think, because so you should always try to use schematics. Schematics have a couple of advantages, that it auto-generates the stuff, and also that inside your Angular JSON you can already predefine what it should generate, right? It's just me, I'm just used to writing this somehow. But also I think IDE has some cool ways of easily generating those, which I don't have integrated. But yeah, whenever possible, use schematics, right? Because this is actually annoying to do this over and over. But with AI, I think I'm quicker like this, to be honest. I think I'm quicker than figuring out the correct schematics command if the project is not pre-configured. If it's pre-configured, it's something different. So let's say this would be my brand new tabs. I have an unrelated question using inject and testing. Yes, sure, like drop all questions that you have, like no problem. It's the only reason why I'm not sure about using inject by default yet. Yeah, with testing, the thing is basically what you are referring to. Let's do like a Scratch file. So let's just go TypeScript. So what is cool now with the current constructor-based approach is, like, let's say you have some class myService, right? And then inside there you would have something like a constructor where you get, for example, the HTTP client. Like this could be a possible class. Yeah, forget the formatting. And then inside your test, because I'm doing pseudocode here, what you can do then, you can very easily do like a before each hook where you have something like this: system under test is new myService, right? And then here I can pass in my mock or whatever. Like let's say this is not the HTTP client but some other service, because HTTP client probably is mocked a bit different, but even the HTTP client, whatever, you can mock that as well. And then you could do here my mock is probably something like this, get chest function, and you can do it as any, right? And then you have it perfectly fine and you have it easily mocked. But with inject, this is no longer possible because you don't have the constructor argument. So what you need to do with inject, you need to go with the full-blown setup, like, so you would need this, right? So what you need to do is configure testing module, I think, and then you need to basically provide your mock here. So you would provide HTTP client and you would then use class the testing module or my mock. But yeah, Tayon, like, I can see that. But on the other hand, today's constructor injection only works because in the Angular, I think it's in the Angular here. I think it's only because of this flag. I think it's this flag. So this basically sets some TypeScript flag, which makes it available that the constructor injection works. But if they would remove in some TypeScript version that flag or that support, then you are basically forced to use inject, right? So I think inject is more future-proof. So how do we call it? Basically inside here I want to have the same that I have here. No. Ah, it's already added. Wow, JetBrains. JetBrains. Router outlet. I love self-closing tags. They are great. They are just great. So let's say new, and then what is it? Not like this. Load component, import, new file component. I can already hear people saying that I should use a default export. Which I probably should. So the thing here is, if I have my new file component and I do a export default here, right? Then what is going to happen that here I don't have to do the then handler. So I can just do it like this. And then we say a default route, path empty, path match full, redirect to new. And this is not yet fully working because, so now we are on /new, right? H1 tabs with single queries. Queries now. Cool. So I moved it to new. And now let's go old. We'll probably copy that component. New file component. What is that? New tabs component. All tabs component. Okay, we add that. Nice, all tabs component. We go and say tabs with traditional queries. Let's call them traditional queries. My brand alt tabs, whatever. Doesn't make sense, but it's fine. And then we say in the app routes, basically we have a path, and the path is no. All tabs component, and then we say probably for now we want to redirect to the old one. Cannot find module tabs, tab directive. Okay, we broke something during refactoring. So this looks good. This looks all this looks good. So new. Well, yeah, because we don't start with an empty route, so we start with the, but this now is the old one, right? So, okay, let's go and let's do like new directory tabs. And inside here we start with a tab old directive.ts. I mean, we just take the content, we paste it here, we call that my old tab. So let's really go like with the old syntax. So what we would do here is we would say add input. And we would say here require true alias my old tab. So this would go away. Now I have too many brackets, and that would be differently written because first you go like input and then you say tab title, which is of type string. And now, since this is required, we will get an error, but we can also tell type to well, this is required. Doesn't actually mean, it's important to notice that this required only checks the present of the attribute. It doesn't really check that the value is there. So if you come and do undefined or something, or just have an empty attribute, it will still be there. But yeah, so let's maybe do here a space, and now the interesting part is we go and we say tab group alt dot component.ts, and we take everything from the tab group. Now the question is how, so this would be, okay. So we say at content children tab directive, and that would be tabs. And this is basically I think this is a query list. You can already see how it gets more complicated just because of the type or undefined. So this will go away. The active tab would just be like a number. Alright, something like this. We still have that. Now the question is how old school do we really want to get? Let's go full old school. Like, we are speaking about English 16, right? Old school. So my old tab group, that's wrong. So that should be tab group, just to not get confusion. Good, my old tab group, and then let's use what we have here. So something like this. And this one is not called my tab, but this should be tab old directive, right? My old tab, it should be. So, okay, here he understands it for some reason. So I don't know why the idea gets it here. But tab alt directive has no exported. Yes. Query list, is it of an array? I don't think it's in. So my old tab group, okay. So we display that old tab group. Right. Now the question is, how do we bring that into the template? Because also, how do we log it out? So if we will go implements after content init, I think that's the lifecycle hook that we need. But you can already see this gets more complicated. Why did it remove the bracket? So we get a query list, right? And now we get results, which is an array, but that's kind of like this private property. So maybe we can just do, can we just do like add, so how is, that was ng4, right? Oh my god, I will so quickly forget about this. Let tab of tabs underscore result. Let's also put the tab header class on that. And of course we have to import ng4. I don't know why he always imports ng4 off, but I mean both work, like ng4 and ng4 off. So tab title is just a property. Object is possibly undefined. Yes. Result doesn't exist on query list. Well, it's called results. And here we go. So you can already see property results is private and only accessible within class query lists. So I guess what you probably need to do is inside here, you will need to say this.tabs dot changes. I mean, does this work? So could we also say this.tabs dot changes and just use the async pipe directly here. The E index we later anyway use. My old tab group. Is it tab title? Something. I just want to see if I get like 3 logs. I get my old tab group. Yeah, because the changes, they don't start like, it's an observable that initially has no real value, right? So what we probably would need, I think we really need something like this. Tabs is equal to so that's an observable, but that's only firing on changes. And I think we can log here this.tabs.results. So let's see. So we get the tabs, which is a query list, and we get first line result changes. But I thought that we can basically access yeah, I know that it's private, but I mean, does this even compile? So already here, tabs So now we get the results. Maybe we could also do that directly inside the template, but of course we don't get the changes then, right? If we would do like tabs, basically $any tabs and then underscore results. This is not even observable, so no async pipe. Then we get 3 tabs, and of course inside here we could do like tab.tab title. Tab title doesn't have to be called because it's not a single. We would get the 3 tabs, right? This would work. But I think the difference here is, so let's see, we have our new tabs, right? And let's say we have 1 tab. And we have to wrap that inside an ng template where we say ngIf equals render fourth, which we will do as a signal because we are here in signal land, right? And render fourth would be a new signal of false. And then down here we do a button. If I could type, render fourth item, and then on a click, what we do is render fourth.set, not call it, just set true, right? So we go to old, we go to new, cool. We have our tabs and we render our fourth item, and this, yeah, great. Wow, that's another cool benefit. I don't know if you saw that, but basically in the past when you were using ngIf, you can only use 1 structural directive per item. So you cannot have multiple structural directives. So here, having an ngIf here doesn't work. And therefore, you usually, what we did as workaround is wrapping everything inside an ng template and put the ngIf there. But now with the new one, you can just go like this, which is very nice. So we have render fourth item, and you can see if I give it, of course, tab 4, fourth tab content. So then we can see how this works and this neatly integrates, right? So whenever we render that, probably we could even toggle. Let's do a toggle here. So for the toggle, we can even do it like this. Render fourth would be a computed, where we say we compute this dot no, that doesn't have to be a computed actually, because I then would need 2 properties, which doesn't make sense. So I basically do like render fourth set render fourth, and then just the other value, right? And you can see how I can basically add and remove that fourth tab, and that's just working, right? I got some error at some case, which I don't see. I don't know, but generally maybe there has to be like some error handling, but yeah, okay. So it doesn't work if I come to tab 4 and I just remove it. I would need to internally, I would need to handle that case, because then we still have the activated template, but the component is no longer there. But generally, what I want to point out is that the change here works. So let's go to the old one and do the exact same with our approach, where we have now like tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. So we would come here and we add again a button, render fourth, on a click, render fourth. Since we are in old land, this would be just a flag probably. So So render 4 is equals to false initially. Then we go for up. And we say render 4 is of course not render 4. And then now we have to use the ng template. Render 4. Tab 4. 4. Oh my god, my English. So yeah. So that would be render 4. And if I click, can't bind to ngIf since it's not part. ngIf, nothing happens, right? Wouldn't it be better to update instead of set? True. That's a perfect comment. Like, yes, of course, you are absolutely right. So what you should do is this. Render 4 update. So what is the problem? Can I use it? So it works, but somehow, I don't know. Maybe I have to update my WebStorm because it seems like it doesn't understand some stuff like this. But of course, if I would take that out inside a handler, that would for sure work and look nicely. But yeah, that's a perfect comment. So thanks a lot. Yay, user. FYE user. Cool. So, but the point here is that basically render 4 why is this working? Why is this fine? Why is this not fine? Okay. Have you seen that? Like, it also didn't compile, so does that mean like I can do this in the template? I can say render 4 dot set render 4, like not render 4, right? This perfectly works fine, but you shouldn't do that, as we just learned. But once I do this, perfect, thanks a lot, Vladislav. But still, no, it works. It compiles or sometimes with the ES build, it's sometimes cached. Let's see again. So I still get the error here, like it's broken basically. But if I do that, I don't know, it seems like you can use the set, but you cannot use the update. Because this works perfectly fine. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting or that's weird. Probably we go with weird. Or no, we go with interesting. That's the nicer way to say it, right? No, that's super weird. I wouldn't have expected. Okay, whatever. So maybe that's something to check then in detail. But still, like, now we have the new one, and in the old one, again, as we've seen, it doesn't really work, right? There's no render form. So how could we make that possible in the old one? In the old one, what you probably would do is inside here, you would say like tabs, which is a observable. Let's just go with any to not overcomplicate it, and or undefined. I don't know how we call it, my tabs or basically projected whatever. And then what you probably need to do is this, that projected tabs is tabs.changes pipe, and then we go with a start with this tabs dot underscore results, I guess something like that. And then here we have to say this tabs as any, so that this works. And then we use, you can already see where I'm going with this, right? Like, if you compare that to the current approach with the signals, it's much nicer, the signals, because then we go here, projected tabs, we don't use that any. We go async pipe, and now it's all tabs, and render forth this should actually work, so let's see. So we have false, we have true, false, right? So that should be tab 4. So we should actually get inside here tap into that with a console log, and what we get if we change, we don't get anything. Dot. So we get the initial one, which is the second one.
Really rough and nothing's working, but there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that, because you don't know who you're going to be.
Yeah, I think the callback is a problem. Probably the callback is a problem. But still, like, now why do I not get the changes? Because we get all the initial results. So I don't get changes, which is a bit weird. So I would have expected that I get changes. So I'm doing something wrong in here.
Because you don't know who you're going to be.
Yeah, now I get the changes. So render forth. It's probably not. Yeah. You know what I did wrong. This is ng container, I think. Not ng template, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. But then let's still prove that basically the previous approach, where we just had like here, we had $any and tabs dot underscore results. We had it like this. And probably here even a question mark. So we had those three, and then yeah, we don't get the update, right? But if we now use our projected tabs with the changes, we get that. So that's basically what we need to do, is we need to handle this ourselves, like the stream. Now, the next thing that we want to do is display this one basically. This will not change from the old to the new syntax. So that would still be the selected tab. Now, the selected tab is probably selected tab is probably also an observable, right? Of actually what we want to stream is a tab old, oh my god, tab old directive. And then we would say this dot selected tab stream is basically, now we need the active tab. So the active tab we need to get notified. So this would basically need to be a new subject where we start with the value of 0. Therefore it's probably not even a subject, it's a behavior subject. And what we need to do is we need to say probably combine latest. I think it's like this, combine latest. Yes, AI. Project, let's check what AI did. Okay, I think this is deprecated probably in like this dot active tab pipe with latest from this projected tabs, and then we map that. Yes, exactly. So the problem is that this is, let's change the typing to this basically. And let's say those streams, we know that we have them. Okay, now we are fighting with the typings. Okay, good. So now we have the selected tabs. So what we want to do here is select the tab. Select the tab stream, and we have to use the async pipe, right? Dot template. Yeah, and then it's not assignable to template ref. Like you can see how this gets then already. Why is the template ref optional? Like template ref any. So first tab content, we can see that. We can render the fourth tab. Now what we need to do is we still need to handle the tab click. So basically here on the header, we say this, activate tab, next. So second tab content, and that's basically it. Third, why is it broken? Second, third. And once we render, Why does it break once we render a new tab? So we have 2, 1, right? 2, 1. And now if we click here, we don't get anything, but if we click, cannot read properties of undefined reading template. Because it's a query list. So once we get the changes, it's no longer, yeah. So once we get a change, we also have to probably, there's a toArray method. So that's, but you can see how much more how much it complicates stuff, right? So now we can render the 4th tab. Yeah. So that's basically it. So let's quickly check. Render 4th. Let's generate a GitHub repo. How did we call it? Signal queries. So that the code is up there. I'll probably also write a blog post about this because I think this is pretty cool. And I think I will use this example. Signal queries, create repository, right? Then let's boom, here we go. Repo is up there right now. So if we check basically the tab directive, there is not much different, right? We use the required input or we just use the old input, which are both fine. But the tab group, so let's first go like more or less in lines of codes because the imports are kind of important or kind of the same. But still we end up with 62 lines of code. And we end up with custom lifecycle hooks, we end up with lifecycle hooks after content init. But what I don't like, we have content children, we have query lists, we then have to use the changes, we have to map them, we have to say we start with something so that we can also react on changes. We have to use the selected tabs, so basically 3 streams, 1 behavior subject, quite some concepts, right? Now let's take a look at the new one. And in the new one, what we have 43 lines of code, 20 codes less. And in terms of concept, we have 2 signals and 1 computed signal. And I think that shows, I mean, it's clear, right? That shows that this is probably really better, and yeah, so if there are no more questions or stuff, I think that's it for today because Champions League started 4 minutes ago. So I'm already late for Champions League. Yeah, if Ilir is still there today, we actually have to be fans of Inter Milan because they play against Atletico, and Atletico, we cannot support Atletico. I'm sorry, we cannot. So yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it for today. I hope you liked the stream. If you liked it, please feel free to share or yeah, spread the content. Maybe this is helpful for other folks too. And yeah, if nothing else, then I wish you all a nice evening and hope to see you soon. See ya.